Welcome to The Road. This is a weekly podcast of All Saints Lutheran Church. I'm your host, Jon Pedersen, and I serve as pastor. Each week, we reflect on faith, life, and navigating the road ahead. The language of journey is common when we think about life. It has its joys and challenges along the way, and we all need a little encouragement and guidance at times to keep us going. There's a word in the Bible, asphalia, which means truth, but it's the same root word we use in English for asphalt, if you can believe that. It's a solid surface that makes travel easier and more assured. And so every week we're going to be exploring elements of faith and life that keep us on the road. Faith isn't about living a perfect life. It's about finding our way, getting through rough spots, but seeking out those great vistas too. You can find my weekly message here, but you'll also find special conversations with guests who have insights on things like wellness, parenting, and living with unique purpose. If you appreciate this podcast, remember to subscribe where possible and share it with a friend. Here's this week's message. Well, again, good to be with you. Good morning. And this series has been a way for us to explore what it means to live out our faith and to ask, what are the core commitments that shape our participation and understanding of life together as a Christian community? And are we ready to take the next step toward that? In week one, we talked about Jesus as the center of our faith and the example we follow in how he saw the world and lived. Rather than all of us looking to Jesus as just a confirmation of what we already think, we continue to look to him for inspiration, but also to challenge us to see things from a renewed perspective. And in week two, we focused on the call to serve in the unique ways that each of us has been gifted. Jesus said, whoever wants to be first must be last of all and servant of all. No one can make an impact like you can in the places where you live and work. Serving is at the heart of what we do as Christians. And so this week, we're closing out this review of the Christian life talking about community. And to do that, we're reflecting on these words of James that we just heard, who paints a picture of the Christian community and what it can look like. It looks like encouragement and prayer and support for one another. James urges those who are suffering to pray. He encourages those who are cheerful to sing songs of praise. And he asks those who are sick to call on those in the church to pray for them. So I just want us to think for a moment about prayer. Here in our services, one of the regular times of prayer that we have is to name people on our prayer list who have requested the prayers of the church, to surround them. And it's an important element for us that James talks about when he says that people who are sick should call on the elders. Now, we may not have exactly the same structure to our community that James had in that time, but I think what's important is that he's simply encouraging people in need to reach out to others. I think I can speak for every pastor that I've ever met, that it's much appreciated when people reach out to the church to let us know if they're looking for prayer and if they want to receive a visit. It's an opportunity for me, but also the whole community to do just that. And it's not easy to know what someone is going through. So James asks us to reach out when we need help. But he also urges those who are suffering to pray themselves. Prayer brings us into relationship with God. It's us speaking with God. It's relating to God. Relationships can bring healing. You know, when we come together, it's an opportunity for us to find the nurture that happens when we're together. And it's the same thing in our relationship with God. When we're in relationship with God, we have that opportunity to find renewed life and hope. And so just a few words on maybe how we should pray in general, because not everyone was raised with an example of what that looks like. Their only understanding of prayer may be more formal prayers in church, or listening to someone who's very articulate in a group. But prayer at its core is just conversation. Some people speak more formally, and that's okay. Most of us are pretty casual in talking to people that we know and care about. And that means that in prayer, if we're mad, we can express that. If we're saddened, we can express that. Afraid, you get the point. It seems so basic, but I think so many people I've known over the years feel uncomfortable when it comes to knowing how to pray. And when James urges any who are suffering to pray, it's a chance to be in the presence of the one who creates and sustains life. Take advantage of that. But remember to ask others too, because by doing that, we're surrounded in community by prayer. And even when it's not done in person, I've heard people so many times say that they can feel people praying for them during times of need. And when we think about community, we know that there are always some of us who will be struggling for whatever reasons, whether it's physical health or emotional health, difficulties in relationships or work. Christian community at its best comes around those of us in need during times like that. So reach out to God and reach out to others for the support you need. But James acknowledges that not everyone is going to be in that place. Others will be what he calls cheerful. The Greek word is actually euthymus. In English, I think that word is kind of hard to translate. Cheerful can seem kind of one-dimensional, but the original word speaks more to a deeper inner well-being and sense of feeling good. And you might kind of reflect in your own way, is there a distinction in your own life between a simple, maybe passing cheerfulness and a deeper sense of feeling happy? Of course, we want those simple moments, right? But I think all of us long for that deeper sense of wellness above all. And I want to point you again to the resources on our website related to wellness. We deal with 6 areas of wellness: spiritual, emotional, physical, intellectual, financial, and social. And I think if we feel significantly diminished in any 6 of those areas, it can have an impact. It can leave us without that full sense of vitality that James is talking about. If you navigate around our resources, you'll find a self-assessment there that may help you identify an area to follow up on. Ultimately, God desires that each of us would experience that inner wellness. And when we're there, we should sing songs of praise. This is a place for that. And when you come and you sing, it matters. Your presence matters. My very first church was a redevelopment congregation north of Milwaukee. The average attendance was 50 back then, pre-pandemic, many years ago. But every Sunday I was thankful for every person who came, and it hasn't changed. And even back then, if I didn't get a chance to speak to every person, I just knew that every person mattered and brought energy. It gives voice to our investment and commitment to our life together. And when we hear the voices of those around us singing, it lifts our spirits. And these days, we know that not everyone can be here. And to be honest, I'm just as grateful when I see views on YouTube. And I'm sure some of you have heard the African word Ubuntu and its connection to Christian faith. Archbishop Desmond Tutu said, Ubuntu speaks particularly about the fact that you can't exist as a human being in isolation. We think of ourselves far too frequently as just individuals separated from one another, whereas you are connected and what you do affects the whole world. When you do well, it spreads out. It is for the whole of humanity, he said. My humanity is caught up and is inextricably bound up in yours. I am human because I belong. It speaks about wholeness. So that's just a great way of describing social wellness. Part of our well-being comes from community. I was talking to somebody before the service about that. Kids back in school experiencing that community again. And when we contribute our praise to this community, it ripples out. And when we share our need for prayer, it allows the community to respond and surround us with care and love. When we remain in relationship with God in prayer and with one another, life-giving community grows. It has the potential to heal us, to heal relationships, and to make the songs we sing all the more meaningful. And when our hearts are not quite mended, it's difficult to sing and experience the full joy we find within songs. But as we come together as a community in heart and soul, through prayer and the grace of God, the picture of a caring, life-giving community comes into focus. It's not easy to keep that focus through so many changes in the world and within ourselves, but God invites us to come and experience the joy of life with Him in community with others. Sometimes entering into community, I think, and into relationships again, can feel like getting into water to swim. You ever had that experience before, getting into a pool? You dip your toes in a little bit, trying to figure out if you can handle the temperature. You walk along the edge, you anticipating it, being so cold. But once you're finally in, it feels so good. You're invited to be part of this community of faith. We are all imperfect. Some of us are in pain. Others are in a place of peace. We are all bound up together, though, as in the words of Tutu. And together we find life through faith in Jesus, through meaningful service and supportive community. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. We are one community together, wherever we are today. Amen. That's this week's message. You don't have to navigate the road ahead alone. You can join with others at All Saints. Visit allsaintsmtka.org for more information. Have a great week.